Okay. Now make them cry, but happy cry. Now make them all make fun of the blonde one. Now make them all do it on the table. Can't believe you created a whole show for me. Now cancel it. Okay, now put it back on. Alright, I'm bored.
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity. We talk about drinking culture, pop culture, politics, and anything else that comes up. Joining me as never is Nolan.
Hey, how's it going?
Jim.
Hello, everybody.
And Kale.
Hi.
Today we are going to be talking about a show that I think we all have some level of experience with, some level of affinity towards, from one creator, Dan Harmon, and that is, as you will see on Kale's background, Rick and Morty and Community. I think both of these shows have pretty strong followings, but I think the followings are kind of different. The shows are kind of different, so we're going to talk about that. But before we talk about science fiction or community college, let's talk about drinking. Nolan and Jim, what are you guys having tonight?
I am having a Bloody Mary with gin.
I'm having water with lemon juice and ice.
Fair enough. Kale.
This is either Mega Street Seed Extract or Henny XO, depending on which lore you follow. Either way, it tastes a lot like Southern Comfort.
Fair enough. And I just went to a little raffle thing the other day, and I got myself an Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel. So that's what I'm having. So just real basically, for people, if you haven't seen Community or Rick and Morty, then this is going to be a very confusing episode for you. So Community essentially is about somebody who is a lawyer. They find out his degree is fake, so he has to go back to community college. However, in Community, I think that what it's about is more kind of, especially as it gets further into the series, more kind of a spoof of sitcoms. And it's, the friends that Jeff Winger meets at community college and them having a study group together. Rick and Morty, I'm going to let Jim and Nolan talk about that. I've seen the full run twice, but I think they're a little bit more big fans of it than I am. So I'll let them describe just sort of briefly, what is Rick and Morty?
Are you the expert?
I don't know about being the expert, but Rick and Morty to me is a buddy comedy on crack. So it's a grandfather and a grandson, and they go have wacky adventures, except grandfather is like the smartest person in the multiverse and also a mass murderer.
And an alcoholic.
And an alcoholic, although they seem to play that down later on.
Yeah.
So they go throughout the galaxy having wacky adventures, doing super questionable things, killing lots of people.
High concept sci-fi.
They're great.
Yep.
So first of all, let's go. Well, not first of all. I guess this would be second of all or third of all, whatever number it is. Let's go around and talk about our experiences with both shows. So, Kale, you've seen all of Community, but very little Rick and Morty. Is that fair?
I am a Rick and Morty novice, yes. I've seen all of Community, and everything I've seen of Rick and Morty is either like a highlight reel or best of, or like breakdowns of the show itself.
All right, and Nolan, what's your experience with Rick and Morty and or Community?
I think I've watched all of Rick and Morty up to date. I've watched all of Community multiple times through.
And Jim, you?
I've watched all of Rick and Morty, although I will say the last two seasons I kind of passively watched. I was doing other things. And I've just watched probably, I would guess I've probably watched like 3 seasons worth of episodes of Community, but in no particular order, just here and there.
Fair enough. I've watched Community all the way through, I don't know, maybe 10 times. I watch Community a lot. Rick and Morty, I watched the full run maybe a month or two, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, something like that. And then I did another full rewatch on the way up to this. So I just finished watching the last episode maybe a week or so ago. So we've all seen at least a fair amount of most of these shows. And I think maybe it's probably fair if we all lay our cards on the table. Which one of these shows do you guys like better between the two? Nolan, why don't you go first?
Community.
Okay. Jim?
It's tough. I have a hard time comparing them, but the episodes of Rick and Morty that I really like, I feel are more stellar than the episodes of Community that I like.
Fair enough. And Kale, obviously, you have somewhat of a limited experience with Rick and Morty. Which one would you say you're more attracted to?
I'm gonna lean toward Community just because I haven't binged Rick and Morty yet. Maybe someday my opinion will change on that, but for right now, I'm gonna say Community.
And not surprisingly enough, given the background, I'm definitely a Community person. So again, the reason we're sort of talking about these two shows together, and you know, I've watched a lot of videos. In the description below, we'll include some other YouTubers that have done videos on both of these shows that I think are kind of interesting and enlightening. But it's the creator, Dan Harmon. And you know, when you watch sort of the way the stories are told, there's a lot of similarities between the two. But also you have the second creator for Rick and Morty, who is Royland. I can't think of his first name. It's not important, but so they do have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. So I guess the reason I like Community more is I feel like Community is more like, well, okay, so I do a lot of cocktail stuff. This will make sense with cocktails because I have to speak in metaphors. So a good Barbados rum is Community. A good Barbados rum is on its own. It doesn't have anything added to it. It is sometimes a little inaccessible for people that are not into rums. And Rick and Morty is more your bimbus, your rums that have a very, very fancy packaging, have some sugar added, maybe have some flavoring added. They're more exciting. They will definitely sell a lot more of those at a college bar than they would the Barbados rums. But in my mind, it's just not as interesting, I guess. And I don't want to come off like I really dislike Rick and Morty. I don't dislike the show at all. I just sometimes feel that it's kind of leaves you feeling a little empty, I guess. Like it's not as deep as it could be. But I don't know. Kind of open up for the discussion. What do you guys think?
So I think Rick and Morty makes me feel empty sometimes. I wonder how much of that is the intentional part of the show. I mean, I don't know that helps make it be popular, but it's a little nihilistic. I mean, maybe more than a little. So I get where you're coming from on that.
Me to jump in here, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Absolutely. Well, I apparently am not able to speak today, so you should probably.
I broke this down as more of a critique and picking out certain elements of each show. And right, what Jim said right there, just that was a perfect segue for me. Because a positive on Rick and Morty is that it makes you question your ethics. And so it's not just about IQ though, it's about EQ, your emotional quotient as well. How you can read other people. On the negative side of that though, it excuses a sociopath. And like Jim said, very much there's a nihilistic approach to Rick. And then they pass it off as satire, which I don't think is completely healthy.
No, I think that's fair. It's sort of, well, the other problem with Rick is I don't mind there being a character who is sort of nihilistic and you know, honestly, I mean, Rick's an asshole. Like he's kind of a mean-spirited person, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having that character on a show, except going, at least for the last couple of seasons, Rick's always right about everything. So not only is he an asshole, but he's always shown to be correct in being an asshole. And that I don't like, and I feel like it sort of inspires some of his fans. And you know, we can definitely talk about the fan bases of both of these shows. You know, talk about people dancing up and down on McDonald's counters asking for Szechuan sauce, for example. And I just feel like it sort of it makes the audience think that Rick is the good guy, and Rick definitely should not be the good guy of the show. I don't think he's necessarily the villain, but he's definitely not the good guy.
And on the other hand, though, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, on the other hand, on the Community side, it truly is a satire. It is a satire of community college and the antics that the students have there, and the things that happen there on a daily basis. The only negative side of that is that it could be deemed hurtful to people that actually do go or went to a community college, because um, I mean, they could be like, well, my school's not that bad or that crazy or whatever. But I mean, if you realize that, yeah, it's a true satire and not just somebody poking you with a stick, then yeah, then I think that's a healthier way to approach it with humor.
I would say I don't think that Community is as much a satire of community colleges, although that obviously seems on the surface what it is it is more sort of a satire of the tropes of sitcoms. Um, and I hope, and again, I hope nobody feels offended by that. I mean, my dad taught at a community college, so I don't think that the show is trying to say community college is bad. I think they, in fact, go over the top many times to show that Greendale is specifically a really, really bad community college. Like, this is not the community college that you want to go to. I mean, their motto is "You're already accepted," for God's sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get that, and I hope people don't feel that way, because I don't think, at least I hope anyway, the show's intent isn't to make fun of community colleges, because I think community colleges are great. And you go ahead.
So I wanted to kind of touch on two things that you said earlier. Kind of talked about how you enjoyed the I don't know. It seemed like you were saying you enjoyed the depth of the meta dialogue and dealing with tropes in Community. And Rick and Morty, I think probably one of the reasons I think maybe Rick and Morty is more popular than Community is Rick and Morty touches on all of those things, but doesn't go deep. And I think Community takes those things and goes really deep with those instead of just touching on them. I also think I heard this in one of the videos that you posted, and it really made me think that a lot of times when Community is dealing with those TV tropes, it's part of the purpose is showing how unhelpful those tropes are for dealing with real life situations, and that's definitely not really something that Rick and Morty is doing. Rick and Morty seems more concerned, like Kale said, with ethics. Although it's really weird because the main character is a sociopathic, homicidal, genocidal person.
He's got some issues.
Yeah,
he's got some issues.
Well, which I wouldn't mind those issues, as long as like we see some development. Like you see a little bit of that in Community. Jeff, he's manipulative, he's narcissistic, but as the series progresses, he learns more about himself and like about how the other characters care about him, and just becomes a better dude, where you don't really see a lot of that from Rick.
That actually is a really good segue to something they talked about in one of the videos I watched. So Community, in my mind, is very much kind of an episodic narrative. So the narrative is really, really important. The episodic is, in the episodes, they're talking about various different things and different tropes. But the through line is really important. The maintenance of the community continuity, if you will, is very important. Rick and Morty, on the other hand, he sort of has a weird relationship with continuity versus episodic, where there are times where I feel like Rick and Morty really wants you to remember the continuity and remember, okay, the aliens that popped up in episode 1, they were kind of the one-off in the pilot that were trying to shoot at Rick and Morty as they're trying to escape that planet, end up going on and being the aliens that are part of the big galactic federation, or what I can't remember what it's called, but and so you have that continuity there. But in other situations, it seems like it really just wants to be an episodic, like Rick and Morty go on an adventure and do this. And I think that sometimes the show kind of has a hard time balancing those two out. I mean, in like, I think it was season 5 where you find out Rick's actual backstory in a couple of flashbacks, and then they're like, and now shut up about it. And so it's like you're showing this continuity of backstory, but it's like you're making fun of the fans for wanting to see that. It strikes a very strange balance to me.
Yeah, that's a very important point. You guys are both on the same track as I am with that. In Community, you see actual real personal growth in each character. They all evolve socially. they'll become better people. Whereas in Rick and Morty, there's no real resolution ever. And I mean, that's convenient because in Community, you're telling a story that requires consistency. You need to see these people growing in each episode. Whereas in Rick and Morty, it pays to not really resolve anything, because then you can just keep the series going. There's still that what if part of the story. A prime example is the Pickle Rick episode, and that was probably the one that really set him off in popular culture. But the problem with that is at the end, and as Mike pointed out, they always point out that, oh, Rick was right the whole time, but at the end he completely dismisses psychology. He completely blows it off as if it has no bearing on the situation, and it did.
Yeah, the Pickle Rick episode is definitely one that people talk about the most, I think, or seems to be anyway. Go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you.
Well, that's fine. I also feel like kind of building off what you guys were saying with Rick, it seems like there is growth. Like you see some growth, but like you were saying about the episodic nature, it's almost like the writers want to ignore that growth, so it doesn't really show up all the time. I mean, like he's I don't know, he doesn't drink as much. He seems to get along much better with the family in season 5 than he did in season 1. And he's doing a little less risky stuff with Morty than he was in the beginning. But
well, let me ask this on that track. I think this is interesting. Do you think Rick and Morty would be better if it sort of committed to a more episodic nature, where it literally is just like every episode is like Rick and Morty going on an adventure to this thing, going on an adventure to that thing? Or do you think they should go the other direction and commit more to being sort of a continuity-based show?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Yeah, I think I would like it pretty well if they just picked one. But I think I'd enjoy it much more as a continuity-based show, where you have like the Rick Citadel episodes. Those are his favorite, and those can tie in a little bit more to the series instead of just being like, oh, hop in and there's like a legitimate storyline instead of just like spaced out throughout the series.
Just Morty's killing Mortys.
Morty's killing Morty's.
I don't have enough experience with the series to say whether I would lean one way or the other on that. But since you do bring it up, what about Morty's trauma? Morty gets traumatized constantly, and Rick never really apologizes for it.
Well, a lot of times he'll apologize in the moment, but then it doesn't. I mean, it's one of those things, I always like, apologize if you're sorry and you won't do it again. But if you're doing the same thing over and over again, don't apologize, because that's just irritating. Like, don't say you're sorry that you're late if you're late every single time, because you're not sorry. Because if you're actually sorry, you wouldn't be. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's funny. I sort of disagree. I think Rick and Morty would be best as entirely episodic, because I think then you can just be bananas. Like, you can just do bananas episodes and you don't have to worry about the consequences. Whereas now it's like they kind of worry about the consequences, but then also kind of just don't. I don't know.
I haven't thought of it like that.
Well, you're not wrong. Because
you always portal yourself back to some other world that isn't all screwed up. It's a scapegoat. It's a way out.
Well, I mean, like the end of the season 1 episode where they make the brain not working today. Rick turns all the people into monsters on Earth, and they just like get in the ship and just go to another universe where Rick and Morty just died, bury themselves. Like, that's a really, really neat, sharp ending for an episode. That's really cool. And especially in a series that's entirely episodic, you can do that and then just never mention it again. But you talk about Morty's trauma, and he talks to Summer about that in a later episode of like, he's on, we sort of forget that Morty's on this alien world the whole time, like ever since episode, whatever that was. I think it's like what, episode 4 or 5 or something like that of the first season. And Morty has been living on an alien world, an alien dimension this whole time. And so he talks to Summer, and he mentions that to her, and it's true. I mean, that would be crazy. Imagine you lived in a world where you knew that everybody you loved and had grown up with had died, and you were just in a sort of a facsimile of that world. Like that would mess with you a little bit, I would think.
A facsimile world where you died.
Right, where you just buried yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And so in this thing they're doing, it's like they kind of do have to deal with that because there is some continuity to it, but at the same time they don't, because they kind of just ignore continuity when they feel like ignoring continuity. But that being said, one thing I'd like to mention.
A little side.
Go ahead, Kale.
I was just going to say a little side note, since you're on this path, is that it seems to me, and I may not be 100% on this, but it seems to me like the things that the writers put in there seem like they would be scientifically plausible. I mean, in theory, they're scientifically plausible. So I think that makes, I mean, not all of it, but a lot of it. And I think that makes the show a little more interesting.
I think they're science fictionally plausible. Maybe not scientifically in the real world, but like you can be like, yeah, sure, I can see that. But that being said, these are comedies, and I think they're both very funny shows. What are some of your guys' favorite episodes or favorite moments? Let's start off Rick and Morty. Jim, why don't you go ahead?
I'll start with Rick and Morty. You referenced one of the episodes I really like, the Morty killing Mortys. It's a Citadel episode where Morty is running for election to be president of the Citadel. I like that episode a lot, partly because it has a lot of continuity importance, and it's just disturbing and hysterical all at the same time. I love the pilot, man. I could watch the pilot over and over and over again. Oh, we lost KL.
Oh, he'll be back.
You have to turn the boots on, Morty.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The pilot's definitely my favorite. And the Morty's killing Morty's actually not my favorite. I kind of felt nasty after watching that one. Didn't make me feel great.
It's dark. I mean, they do get a little dark.
I felt really bad for laughing.
I think my favorite episode is Total Recall, which is the one where they have the aliens that they implant themselves in memories, and so they create somebody who in your memory you just remember is there. And so it starts off with, who is it? It's the first one that comes in is it's like Jerry's brother, I think, who's just been staying with him all this time. And like slowly throughout the show, there's just more and more of these things get created, and these like incredibly implausible characters, like the reverse giraffe, the one with the short neck but a huge body, that's voiced by Keith David of all people. And there's like the Frankenstein butler, and like just all these really, really weird ass characters. And I thought that was a great episode. And of course, the introduction of Mr. Poopy Butthole, which is, a heck of a name for a character. And I love the ending when you realize that Mr. Poopy Butthole is a real character, even though we've never seen him before. And, Rick's daughter shoots him. That's a good one.
Is that supposed to be a play on Mr. Hanky or something?
No, I think they just came up with the name Mr. Poopy Butthole and wanted to have a character named Mr. Poopy Butthole. No word on how poopy his butthole actually is, but one would think quite.
Kale, do you have any particular? You said you haven't really watched very many episodes of Rick and Morty.
No, I saw the pilot because it's pretty short, and I've seen chunks of the Pickle Rick episode because that seems to be the most popular one I've seen around. And then I watched like highlights of season 1 and season 2. And I was only aware that there was even a season. I didn't know there was like a 5 or a 6. How many seasons are there now?
There's 5, and I think 6 is coming out sometime soon.
Okay. Well, I'm one of those people that just has air channels, so I don't have cable or satellite or anything like that. So my sources are limited. So, I mean, I don't really have a favorite Rick and Morty that I could go to.
I was also going to mention the Ricks Must Be Crazy for two reasons. Just the A story is pretty good with finding out that Rick has developed a small universe in a battery so that the people inside the battery, this microverse, will create power for his car. And he goes in there because it stops providing energy, and he finds out the people in the microverse have created a universe inside of a small battery in their microverse with people that are powering their universe. And so, of course, they go to that universe and find out that those people are starting to build technology that will build a universe inside of that universe. And that's a really fun story. But the B plot is maybe even funnier because it's so small. Because Rick and Morty go into the car, and Summer is just sitting here in this car in this alternate dimension. And Rick has told the car to defend her. And so, like, somebody comes up and like knocks on the window and asks for some change, and the car like murders him. And so she's inside this car just like freaking out because the car is like killing people around her. And she has to tell the car to stop killing people. So it has to come up with new and intricate ways to protect her. And like there's a bunch of SWAT team members around her. And so she shoots out, the car shoots out this little cartridge with a little fetus that fast grows into the child of this guy. And like the child then melts in front of him. And so he like runs away screaming. It's a it's very good. Very good episode.
I like the title, "The Ricks Must Be Crazy," because that's a play on "The Gods Must Be Crazy."
Right. No, what do you think? Go ahead. So I'm sorry.
Nothing is.
Nolan, what's your favorite episode or two?
For Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Probably favorite episode would have to be the pilot. I thought it was hilarious when they were shooting the aliens and Morty thought they were robots until they started bleeding and screaming everywhere.
Because Rick told
they're just bureaucrats. They don't robots, feel anything. Right. Yeah.
It's like, hey, they're not really robots. They're bureaucrats. They don't matter.
So what about Community? Man, I've written down all my favorite episodes of Community, and if we talk about all of them, that's just going to be the whole rest of the show. So I don't think that. So why don't Nolan? Why don't you go first on Community? What episodes are sort of memorable to you?
I'd have to say one of my favorite episodes was around when the series was wrapping up. Pierce dies because he jacked off too much. He was preparing to give everybody a jar of his semen so that they could, populate the world with him when he died, and he died from doing that. And everybody really tried to figure out where they were going after community college, and I thought that was nice. Like Troy was going to sail the world or whatever.
Walton Goggins famously a little part in that episode. I think he's a great actor, and it was nice to see him in that one. Yeah, that's a good one. Jim, anyone stick out to you?
I'm really having a hard time thinking one specifically that I really liked. The one with alternate realities, alternate histories, where they rolled the dice in Troy and Abed's apartment.
Remedial Chaos Theory.
It was very interesting.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's the one that leads. So one of the things we have to talk about is season 4 of Community. Famously, or maybe not famous if you don't know this, Dan Harmon was fired after season 3 of Community because reasons. He is, by the way, as much as I like a lot of the stuff that Dan Harmon does, he is famously very, very difficult to work with. And I think even by his own, he will even admit he's kind of an asshole and tough to work with. And so they had to do one season of Community without Dan Harmon, which is season 4. He came back in season 5, and they sort of famously refer to that season as the gas leak year. And the season finale, I think, used Remedial Chaos Theory in a bad way by having the darkest timeline invade the main timeline. I didn't love that, but the original Remedial timeline is great. It's got that famous meme of Donald Glover walking in with pizzas, and like Pierce has been shot in the leg, and the table's on fire, and the like flaming troll is sitting there looking up at Troy, and it's just like, it's great. Everybody's seen that meme. Kale, while you are on, what episodes of Community sort of stick out to you?
I'll be quick because I'm not sure how much time I got. I liked all the paintball episodes, even though that's simulated gun violence and that's bad. But I also really liked the meta episode, and I think that's partly because it leads into Dan Harmon's real personality behind the scenes. And
Which
I think
episode?
he's a great creator. The meta episode about Abed being so meta.
I think a
He's
lot of
making a
episodes are
film.
about Abed being meta.
Was that the Christmas one?
There's a specific one where he makes the movie. And
The one, the Jesus one.
yeah, and
Okay, yeah.
and what's the gal's name? I can't remember her character's name.
Ava Nicole Brown?
Yeah,
Annie?
the super religious gal.
Yeah.
The super religious gal.
Really?
Like she overhears him basically praying for someone to end it. And so she goes in there and throws a big tantrum and like breaks all the stuff so he can't keep going. And I don't know, to me that seemed, I don't know. The one thing I would say about that is that it seems like it was relying on religion to fix the problem instead of people fixing the problem. But I mean,
Well,
really, it was a person fixing the problem. I guess,
that's what I was gonna say. I
because
think
of her.
it shows you that people are there. Like the people that are part of your community are the people that will help you out.
But as far as it like reflecting on Dan Harmon as a human being, it shows that yeah, he's a great creator. But like you said, he seems aloof. Like he seems like, and I think this shows up more than the Rick and Morty thing than Community. That like that's how he writes Rick, is that he can just do whatever and people can just deal with it. Because I think that really that's how he thinks, is that I am this genius and you should just respect me and let me do my thing. And then vice versa, that he got a little karma for that on Community because Chevy Chase is a giant ass, and I guess him and Dan were button heads the whole time. So
Yeah, that's when as you get more into, they both are kind of not people that I probably would want to hang around with. And I think when you have two people that are kind of like that, then they're going to definitely be fighting a lot amongst each other. There's actually a fair number of episodes about filmmaking, because there's the one where the dean is trying to make the commercial, which I think is a fantastic episode.
Yes.
And like just him just going down the rabbit hole of crazy. And trying to get, and Luis Guzman finally shows up, which I thought was great. And yeah, that one. And then there's the one where they've got, I think this is season 5, I think season 5, where Chang gets just briefly famous as the ham girl guy, which around the house I will still every so often look at my wife and be like, ham girl, because I think that's hilarious. And so they decide to make a science fiction movie based on like one clip of Chang that Abed had shot, and they film a whole movie around it. And I thought that was really, really good.
I think one of my favorite like documentary episodes, I guess is what you'd call them, was the episode with the pillow fort.
Pillows and blankets.
Yes.
That's a good one.
What was the episode where the air conditioning people are stalking Troy to recruit him?
That was just one episode that ran on for a while. And that famously had John Goodman playing just this incredibly bizarre character, where he just shows up one day, except he's got a ponytail, and people are asking him why he's got a ponytail. He's like, I'm going through some things.
Yeah.
And it just like goes away. But the best line from that character was like, the true repair man will repair man. It's just so great because it sounds so profound, but it means nothing. And I think it's like perfect. I'll say it to Vanessa sometimes to just be like, the true repair man will repair man. One of my favorite lines. And the whole thing, and I love how Troy is constantly calling them out for like, this is an it's trade school. What's wrong with you people? we're learning air conditioner repair. And they have like, what is it? Like Black Hitler and like an astronaut making hamburgers and stuff. And it's just like this really weird thing. It's like, it's an air conditioner school. What's wrong with you?
So I don't know about everybody else, but I've had jobs like that where I'm like, what is wrong with you people? It's just a job. Let's not take this
so much more than that.
So seriously.
Instead of sending them to the special court, they just call the police. No, just call the police. There's been a murder.
Put him in the dungeon. It's like, no, he killed somebody. Call the police. What's wrong with you? And that sort of is called is the difference. So continuity and community versus Rick and Morty. They do draw continuity and community because Troy is in the air conditioner repair program, but they do sort of drop some of the more extreme elements because Troy's their messiah, which is interesting. But I think they carried that on like just about the right length because I think if they would have pushed that too far, it would have started to get old, I think, after a while. But so what did you guys think of season 6 of Community? I think that's one kind of a unique one because it was on kids. If you weren't aware of this, there used to be a streaming service owned by Yahoo. They owned a streaming service for, I don't know, a year, if that.
I blinked and missed it.
It was called
reading about that. I was like, what? Yahoo had a streaming service? Where was I?
It was called Yahoo Screen. And if you haven't heard of it, then you are in good company because most people haven't. And that's what picked up Community for the 6th season. Sort of the weird thing is they had lost most of or a lot of the characters by then. Donald Glover had left, Chevy Chase had left, and Yvette Nicole Brown had left. And they sort of had to bring in some replacements. I still really like that season because it's incredibly bizarre. It's very, very bizarre season. What did you guys feel about it?
I don't think I ever got the chance to get around to the 6th season. And did they ever end up making the movie either?
No. 6 seasons in a movie.
It was a lie.
All the people are still around. It's still possible.
We'll see.
Yvette Nicole Brown has said on a couple of occasions it's absolutely going to happen. So maybe. All the seasons are on Netflix now, though, so you can watch even season 6, which again is a strange season. They really did have to change some things out. One of the funny things is there was an earlier episode where in season 5, I think it's season 5, where Annie wants to hang what do you call it, like a chalkboard, not a chalkboard, like a bulletin board. And so she's like desperate to get this one bulletin board hung, and she has to go to all these people, and everybody keeps asking her for a favor, which moves around to somebody else. And the woman who is the tech support person is played by the character that will later on in season 6 be the main one of the main characters. And they sort of address that later on that, she's trying to get a hold of the tech support lady, but all her emails just keep coming back as undeliverable because obviously she's that person. Jim, did you watch season 6?
I've not watched any of season 6.
Caleb, you watched it, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what did you think? You said you didn't care for season 6 as much.
I think I was just disappointed that it was ending. Like I say that I didn't really appreciate the ending, but I think it's because I wasn't ready for it to end. So that might be my own personal feelings playing into it. I really wanted to see it go on. And that brings me to another point. Like when you compare the fan base of Rick and Morty and Community, the numbers don't really line up. And that's because there are a lot of fans out there of Community that just didn't get counted, I think. That was something that Dan Harmon kind of played into, the very last little skit piece at the end of season 6 where they do the community board game. Yeah, and he does that whole spiel about how the Nielsen's rating basically screwed him. So yeah, I think that if it had more mainstream exposure, it would be just as well known as Rick and Morty is.
I don't know if that's true. I think that Rick and Morty does have a wider appeal. Again, I prefer Community, but I get it. I mean, the Rick and Morty episodes, I think they're big. They're kind of, They're bright. They're sort of vibrant. And I get why people like that. It doesn't take much of an investment. I mean, when you're doing some of the, like, the Asscrack Bandit episode, which is another episode that I absolutely love, because it's basically like a David Fincher, like it's like Seven, except the whole premise is around somebody that likes to drop quarters down people's butts. And to this day, you can watch videos of people going in depth trying to figure out who actually was the Asscrack Bandit. And I've linked one of these below that seems to indicate that Annie was the Asscrack Bandit.
No, it was Abed.
Well, it couldn't have been. I don't think it could be Abed alone. It's possible it could be Abed and Troy, maybe. But I'm convinced on Annie. Nolan, Jim, do you have any dog in the fight of who the Asscrack Bandit actually was?
That episode.
It's been a minute since I've seen that one, but I think it'd be really interesting if it turned out to be Annie's boobs, the monkey.
It's possible. Annie's boobs. One of my favorite lines from later on is when Troy keeps saying Annie's boobs, and Yvette Nicole Brown's character's like, "Yeah, we get it. The monkey's called Annie's boobs." So let's go back to Rick and Morty. Who are your favorite? I mean, this is sort of one that's tougher on Rick and Morty because you basically have Rick and Morty as the main characters and everybody's a side character. What side characters in Rick and Morty do you like to see, or do you kind of enjoy showing up?
I love it when they're just ridiculous with Morty's dad, Jerry. I mean, he's just an absolute idiot. And, I don't know. I just think he's great comic relief in some of the episodes.
I have to agree on that one.
Like the virtual world, where they're using so much computing power to trick Rick into thinking that he's in the real world that they have to dumb down Jerry's world, so they're only building it like a few feet in front of wherever he is, and even the music in the car is just 2 notes or 3 notes or something like that. They're like, "Welcome to radio station 1, where we listen to people music." And it's like, people music, I kind of like this.
Yeah, Jerry's not the most handy person to have around, I don't think. I'm trying to think. I like Bird Person a lot. I think the one where what's the one where he goes in to like save Bird? Returnal Sunshine of the Spotless Mort. The one where he has to like go in and save Bird Person because he's dying or whatever. I thought that was a pretty fun episode, and like it had some heart to it too, which you don't necessarily always get on the Rick and Morty episodes.
You know,
Same as you, Jerry.
yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry's something.
Well, these past couple days, I've really been feeling like Jerry.
Yeah, I
So,
can imagine.
brain capacity, yeah.
My favorite one, my favorite Jerry moment is when they're surrounded by like the Imperial Guards or whatever, and Jerry has the gun, and Rick's like, "Everybody drop your gun," and he turns, "It's not you, Jerry," and Jerry drops it. He's like, "Fucking classic." I don't know, just the way he says "fucking classic," classic Jerry. That might actually be my favorite Jerry or Rick line of the whole show. Just like being like, "Oh my god, I forgot how much of an idiot I'm standing around."
I will also say I like the president. The few episodes where the president shows up and always has a bone to pick and a conflict with Rick. And,
Yeah, he's good. It's Keith David does the voice, doesn't he? I think.
I'm not sure who does it.
Yeah, he's great. That's like the closest they had to having kind of a long running. I mean, it wasn't that long. I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 episodes, where they actually had sort of a through line of them, having conflict with the president. By the way, that season was cut short. Apparently, it was supposed to be Rick and the president were going to team up to fight some kind of werewolves. That was like the plan where that was going to go.
Awesome.
Maybe it's coming in season 6.
Maybe. Well, you know what? I put some thought to this and I actually changed my mind. I really like the math teacher. He doesn't show up much, but I really liked when it turned out that he was going to therapy because he eats poop.
Well, you guys are here for poop too? I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, me neither. Oh, he's the one they did the Inception episode on. where they meet like the because they're trying to incept him to give Morty good grades.
Oh, right.
And they go like 2 or 3. It's the Inception episode basically, which is funny. Troy has a great line in Community about that where they're all like giving up these like confessions or whatever. I don't remember which episode it was, and he's like, I never understood Inception. Oh, and we can't get through this without talking about the fact that it is very likely that Community is a show in Rick and Morty that was created specifically for Rick. Because when you remember when Rick famously fucked a planet, what was the name of the character, the planet character? I can't remember. Anyway, so he's having sex with her and doing all this stuff, and so he watches a television show and asks her to create a television show. And if you hear the things Rick says when he's watching the show, like one part he's like, have them all make fun of the blonde one, and like he's very clearly talking about Community. Except then, as a counterpoint to that, Rick and Morty is shown on screen in Community once, just like for a split second. It's when Abed is sitting down where he's dating Brie Larson's character. And as the camera turns around, you can see Rick's ship clearly on the television. So they're both shows on each other's universes.
It's so meta.
So what are your favorite characters in Community? For me, it's Dean. I love the Dean. The Dean's fantastic. He's just the best.
You just like his outfits.
Happy Holiday.
I really like Senior Chang in the early episodes where he's teaching the Spanish class. For me, a lot of it are the extra characters, like Betty White is fantastic as the
Anthropologist.
Sure.
Chang has a bunch of really meta things he'll say in the show too. Like when they're talking to Frankie, I think it's season 5 or 6, and she's like, "Wait, you used to be a Spanish teacher here?" And Chang's character says, "And quite frankly, haven't been utilized well since." And he's kind of right. And then what's Abed is doing some kind of account thing, and Chang farts, and after he finishes, Chang says, "I farted on the 4th one." In other words, talking about the 4th season being the one where Harmon was fired. I thought that was very clever.
It's a crotchety old guy. What's his name?
Leonard.
Leonard. I love Leonard.
Leonard. By the way, there is a fan theory that Leonard is actually Jeff sent back from the future, which I think is a pretty great little fan theory. And it kind of makes sense. There's another one where Abed's a father, because there's I can't remember which one of the seasons. I should have written this down. Where Abed basically has a whole plot line that happens almost entirely off screen, where like you see him talking to this pregnant girl, like just in the background. It's not part of the scene. It's just kind of in the background. And like if you watch carefully throughout the scene or throughout the series, like you'll see this Abed's got this whole thing going on in the background that just never gets even mentioned.
Well, I think in that episode he ends up helping her give birth in the parking lot, right?
It could be. I'm not sure. I've seen the show this many times. I'm still not totally up on it.
Well, I think if I remember correctly, you remember the episode where they have the sex education themed like prom dance and all the condoms have holes in them?
Yeah.
So you see that same girl leave the dance with this guy.
Oh, that would make sense. That would make total sense.
And that's who we suspect the father is, not Abed.
I love the fact that an episode ends with Abed on the PA system saying, "Do not use the condoms. Do not use if you're going to have sex, don't use condoms."
What about you, Kale? You tell us favorite characters?
Yeah, Kale, what's your favorite characters in Community?
Well, I always liked Abed and Troy's antics. Chang I loved to hate. Because he was such a good little crazy bad guy. It's just the Changnesia. And like when he went into the vents and was like living in the vents. Remember the Lost Pen episode?
Yeah.
I have that written
Found
down.
like 1,000 things in the vent. I don't remember how that originally started. I do remember there was like a highlight. One of the highlights was him like rubbing himself down with Vaseline and just diving headlong into the vent after the monkey.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
Cooperative calligraphy. That was that episode. By the way, some people say that's why Chang was as crazy as he was, is because the monkey was freed from a research facility by Britta. And they told her that anybody that the monkey bites would have a chance of becoming insane. So then Chang lives in the vents for a while. Well, Annie's boobs is also living in the vents for a while, possibly bit Chang, and that's why he went crazy in the 3rd season.
He was also in there with when they put in the monkey gas. So that could explain.
I think my favorite of that is when that one security guard who's just staying on there to get some kind of a certification or whatever. And like, he's always like, Chang's got these delusions about like, he's going to do this. And like, he wants to get the big promotion. He's like, you're a security officer. Like, you don't, and he has him like guarding like a trash bin for a while. Just like and not even guarding it. Just like, make sure nobody runs into this. Cause like people can sometimes miss it on the way out. You just have to stand here and like, he thinks he's like, you know, the best cop in the world. And like the board he has up there, he has like the matchbooks that he's looking at. And he's like putting all these things together as a conspiracy, but it's just random shit. And he's just crazy. Possibly Annie's boobs crazy.
Forgot that was Chang was a security guard in there for a while. And he played security guard in Ant-Man. Or in Endgame, sorry.
Oh, really?
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the community people have popped up.
Yeah.
A lot of the community people have popped up in the Marvel Cinematic, because the Russo brothers, the ones they got a lot of their start in Community, and so Jim Rash is in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, playing of all things Dean. And more of them pop up. I don't think Joel McHale's popped up, has he?
I don't know of.
Nah.
Abed has. Abed was a security guard in Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yep.
I'm sure there's got to be a ton of others.
That's the thing that I really enjoy, especially on these shows when they do that, like the Abed in the background thing. I love it when there's just these little things, like almost Easter eggs, but not really. You just have to be paying attention. It shows like if you're really paying attention to everything or not. And I get a big kick out of that. Like when you realize, like maybe a couple seasons down the road or whatever, it's like, oh, that's what that was about. I mean, that's fun. I mean, it's cool.
I like the series. Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
You guys happen to catch the Beetlejuice bit?
I didn't catch it. I know about it. I did not catch it on my own. It had to be pointed out that it's like he pops up. Like you have to see Beetlejuice 3 times, or is it
Right.
3 or 5 times? And it took them a long. It took them like a season or 2
What
to
if
say it
it's
3 times.
season,
And
They
then
do it once a season.
something like that. It was so long.
And then like right after they say Beetlejuice the 3rd time, if you look right behind, I think it's like Annie's shoulder, a guy dressed in Beetlejuice costume just walks past.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I love that show.
So I have a question. Do you think that is why some people love the show, and also why didn't reach mass popularity? But it
Yeah, I
takes
think.
too much effort and too much work to be a mass.
Yeah, no, I think it's 100% right, and I think it's also a lot of the humor is really subtle. There's I mean, it does have big, sort of out there humor, but a lot of it's really subtle, and I think that for a lot of people, if you're working 10, 12 hours a day and you come home, you don't want to have to think about the show you're watching. You just want to relax and laugh, and I think that's perfectly fine. That's the one thing. There are. We should talk about the fan bases a little bit. The Rick and Morty fan base has some issues. I will put in. I'll see if I can't put in the little either a link to the video or whatever about. Anna Isabel's video starts off with it, so in her video is linked below as well. somebody talking about how you have to be really, really smart to like Rick and Morty.
I saw a girl the other day wearing a Rick and Morty t-shirt, and I asked her if she knew what her shirt meant. It went like this. Me. Hey, nice shirt. Do you understand where your shirt is from? Her. Haha, yeah, it's like a shirt from like a cartoon show or something like that. Get swifty, haha. Me. Have you ever watched any of the episodes? Her. Yeah, like I've watched a few, but I saw this at Hot Topic and thought it was cute, haha. Me. How many schmeckles did you pay for it? Her. What? I paid like $20 for it. I don't know what schmeckles are. Me. Point proven. Have a nice day, miss.
And only smart people like Rick and Morty, and dumb people can't like Rick and Morty. And it's like, so I understand the stuff that's going on in Rick and Morty is sort of a lot of high science fiction ideas, but honestly, most of the stuff is just explained in the episode. Like, you don't really need to have this huge sci-fi background. And to be fair, that post, it's not really known whether or not that was real or somebody trolling. So it could be not 100% genuine, but I think there is that sort of thing in the Rick and Morty fandom of kind of a feeling of superiority. And that's kind of, I think, the problem with Rick as a character, that he kind of, in a way, feeds into that, this idea that he's smarter and that being smarter means you have to be mean. But Kale, go ahead. I was kind of talking over you. I apologize. I think we lost Kale.
Oh, no.
Nolan, why don't you go ahead?
That was a great pose right there. It looked very stoic.
Kale's good at freezing in good positions. My favorite is when he froze up with his Wi-Fi device holding up saying it's not working. That was my favorite. All right, Kale, sorry, I kind of talked over you. Why don't you go ahead?
Oh, me?
You.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm having technical difficulties, so I apologize to you guys and,
it doesn't show.
And the audience. All four of the people watching this right now. Yeah, you're onto a point, because I wanted to get to this eventually, and I think we're at that at a good point now, where we covered a lot of aspects of both shows. You brought up the Szechuan sauce thing.
Guys, no Szechuan sauce? No. I want Szechuan sauce. Where's my Szechuan sauce? I'm Pickle Rick. What below dum dum? I'm Pickle Rick. Rick! I'm Pickle Rick!
That is big propaganda. That is fandom. That is loyalty. That is, a really bad example, but it is also the power of, popularity. And I think you're really hitting on something here, and I kind of hinted at this earlier, and I want to bring it back. Fan base of Rick and Morty has loyalty. They clearly have let this affect their ego in some way. Socially, it affects their ego, and I think the problem is in a lot of these videos, they kind of pointed out, critiquing the show, that they equate cruelty to being intelligent. Like, because you're smart, you're mean to other people. But from a philosophical point of view, from a Stoic point of view specifically, your emotional quotient should be equal to your intelligence quotient. You need to realize that, just because maybe you are smarter than someone, you should be as emotionally adept as you are intelligent. You need to know how to be kind to people, and perceiving kindness as weakness, being cynical, this whole good is dumb, that's why evil will always win, Spaceballs, thank you. It's just not right. And it kind of, like, the first thing that popped into my head, and I wasn't going to say it, but I will now, is the Dunning-Kruger effect. And basically what that is because you've been led to believe that you understand this so much better than you really do, then you're not going to approach it correctly. It makes you kind of dangerous, really. Maybe not physically dangerous, but socially and emotionally dangerous. That, you think, oh, well, you don't get this show because you're stupid. Or maybe it's just because they don't like that show. And like, if you're going to exercise your mind, you need to exercise your emotions as well. They need to be equal.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Nolan, I think you had something to say earlier, and I washed over you. I apologize.
It's gone now.
Sorry about that.
It's all good.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dunning-Kruger effect. I think that's not an unreasonable thing to bring up. Cognitive bias, whereby people with limited knowledge or competence in a given intellectual or social demand greatly overestimate their own knowledge or competence in that domain relative to objective criteria. I think there is a little bit of that. And yeah, so we brought up the Szechuan sauce. I don't, Jim or Nolan, do you guys want to talk about that whole thing?
I got a kick out of it.
Well, sort of talk about what it was. Like, what is the Szechuan sauce, and why are we talking about it?
I'm having a hard time remembering the details of the episode. Is that the one of the ones where the aliens are trying to crack his brain and having him in an alternate reality?
I think so, yeah.
And he's not fooled. I don't remember what the Szechuan sauce part was in it.
Because they're back at a time, they're back at the time where they were selling the Szechuan sauce.
Which is a real thing. Like, McDonald's had Szechuan sauce part of a Mulan promotional, and apparently it was for a McDonald's product. It was pretty good, and there were limited supplies, and they've never made it since. And actually, even before Rick and Morty did something about it, I remember reading a story about someone. There's I don't know what they call it, where you trade up, where you trade things, and some people treat it as a game, and they trade and trade and trade and trade. There was a story about a guy that started with a Szechuan packet and traded for a car, ultimately. But it's pretty nice. I don't remember what the Szechuan sauce played in the episode, though.
Well, it was just Rick was talking about it in that it was something that people that like the Szechuan sauce was great. So they were either in a time, or I think maybe they were in an alternate dimension where they never stopped making it, or I don't know, something. Oh, right. And it was this is great. And so essentially, then all Rick and Morty fans, not all, I should not say that, a tiny portion of Rick and Morty fans put together this huge thing to try and get McDonald's to bring back the Szechuan sauce, which they did for a very limited time. McDonald's vastly underestimated how much people wanted Szechuan sauce, and so they didn't have nearly enough of the demand. And some Rick and Morty fans decided to make absolute goddamn fools of themselves in public places by throwing literal temper tantrums. This is not me using temper tantrum as a pejorative. This is literally an actual temper tantrum in the middle of a McDonald's. And I think everybody saw that and was like, "Yee."
Can we pull up the clip of that?
I'll try and put it in. I'll try and put it in if I can. We'll see how the YouTube likes me playing other things, because it's always.
Are you going to swing into cringe now?
We can talk about cringe. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good segue into it. So I think that a lot of people sort of view the Rick and Morty fan base as being cringeful, if that's a word. The first thing we talked about the fan base being very sort of high on its own supply, considering itself to be morally or at least intellectually superior to everyone. And then the Szechuan sauce thing, two events that occurred very close to one another. And yes, that's where part of the sort of cringe stuff was, but you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think cringe is dumb. That's all I got to say about it. Jim, Nolan, please take over.
Well, I have some really important things to say, which is I don't follow any of this stuff. I'm not on social media, so I really have nothing to say about it. Other than other people maybe should consider also not being on social media.
Right.
Well, the other cringe thing, and I think you're probably right. I think the other cringe thing was the Pickle Rick, because then you had people running around just yelling Pickle Rick, and other people who didn't know what it was thinking, wow, that person seems like an asshole.
Well, Pickle Rick made a comeback pretty recently. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did not. Please enlighten me. We're all very, very old people, you see.
It's just I don't know, a lot of people made memes like they like put famous people saying stuff about Pickle Rick, like they had Bernie Sanders up on stage, and it's like, and he says, "I'm Pickle Rick," and that's the funniest shit I've ever seen. So sort of like making fun of the Pickle Rick bit, and I brought it back. I don't really have.
It sounds so good.
It's pretty great.
Bernie Sanders did this?
No, I don't think Bernie Sanders actually did it, Kale. I think it's people putting words over top of it.
Right.
Memes, if you will.
Right.
I really hope when they did it, they had him sitting in his inauguration outfit with the giant mittens.
Man, that was so dumb.
Those were some big ass mittens.
Some big ass mittens.
They looked very warm.
Yeah, I don't have much problem with Rick and Morty being cringe as much as I do the fan base being cringe about it. Like, you're not smart.
Yeah, to be fair, when I say cringe, I'm not really talking so much about the show as I am sort of the fan base's reaction and stuff like that. The some of that stuff is just, I don't know. I don't understand why people can't just like a thing and just like it.
Exactly.
It's like everybody has to like, no, I'm going to be the best fan in the whole world. It's like, you don't have to be. Like you'll watch the show just like everybody else.
I think it always starts when Hot Topic starts selling items themed after a certain series.
The Hot Topic effect.
Yep.
The recycling center of culture.
Yes. I'm goth now. No,
So I'd like to ask,
anyway.
South Park is also a pretty edgy cartoon show for older people. Is that fan base cringy as well, or is it old enough that it predated social media and so it doesn't have the same kind of online fan base?
Every time I am surprised that South Park still exists. I haven't watched an episode in, I'm going to say, at least a decade, and probably longer than that. I feel like it was relevant for a while, and now it's just kind of, it feels like I mean, it's very much like The Simpsons in that same way of like, just nobody ever canceled it.
It's a zombie show.
Right. It's very much like The Walking Dead too. A show that nobody can figure out why people keep watching it, but people just keep watching it. And like, so and it's, I think Walking Dead finally did get canceled. However, there's still at least one spinoff, maybe two.
Right.
And it's never been very good. It's just never been a very good show. It was okay the first season or two, although even the second season was absolutely boring as hell. Kale, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. If you like Rick and Morty, or if you've watched South Park and enjoyed that, go even further back to a little show called Beavis and Butthead. That was our first kind of out. That's like the godfather of these shows to me, I think. That like, it was like the first one where somebody just was like, let's just try this crazy thing. You know, it's outlandish, it's simple, it's easy, it's stupid, but people love it. People love it. And maybe it's because I am from an older generation. But personally, I think that here's the difference between just being awkward in general and being cringe. When you're being cringe, you're being awkward on purpose. You're doing it for attention. And that really irks me as someone who's genuinely just awkward. Like, I don't always fit in. I don't always feel comfortable in a situation with certain people. I'm not going out of my way to do that. And I think if you're doing that on purpose, you're just immature. It annoys me. It's annoying.
And it's not funny. Like, if you're just awkward, that can be funny.
Well, I think you might be wrong about that. Well, I mean, funny is one of those things that's it's so like subjective, but like there is a huge cringe thing out there. There are people that love that stuff. Like if you're really good at doing cringe, you'll have 1 million subscribers to your YouTube channel. I don't get it, but then again, I'm old. I'm not supposed to get it. The one that came sort of to respond to something, and I think this isn't exactly on Community and Rick and Morty, but it definitely has to do with Rick and Morty, and sort of taking Beavis and Butthead and going one step back is Liquid Television. Jim, do you remember watching Liquid Television on MTV?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my God. Did you have a childhood? Good Lord.
Probably
The
I didn't
brain.
have cable then, remember? I lived in the boonies.
I get it. You had
Channel 17 was cable.
had a porta potty and everything. I got it.
Yeah.
So Liquid Television is a show that everybody should check out. A lot of it is not very good. There's a ton of Liquid Television that's probably just
Aeon
straight out
Flux.
bad. Well, Aeon Flux obviously is sort of the biggest thing to come out of that. But just this like half an hour cartoon show where they would show just kind of bananas cartoons. And the one show that came out of that to be very successful was Beavis and Butthead. But it's sort of it definitely kind of reminds, like the Aeon Flux stuff kind of reminds you of Rick and Morty a little bit. And it's like sort of high sci-fi, but also just kind of weird too. I mean, the first Aeon Flux cartoon that I remember, and this is the one that's stuck with me all these years, is this show where there's a bunch of these people that are invading this base. And all the people in the base get killed except for one guy who's like the lone warrior. And he kills all the people that are invading the base. And then he runs to the other base and starts killing all the people on that base, except for the last guy in that base who kills him. And then he goes out to be the lone warrior against a different base. And he kills all the people on that base before it being killed by the last person on that base who kills him, and then goes to another base. And it's just this absolutely ludicrous, but it's really, really good. Like the animation is really good, but it's also ludicrous. And so you see something like that and you sort of see how, the Rick and Morty creators could have kind of got some of their ideas. There's one other show I wanted to mention briefly that I think we should probably talk about. I have not seen it, so we're not going to talk about it very much. And that is a show called Solar Opposites. Have you guys heard of that show?
No.
That's pretty recent, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it started in 2020. Caleb, have you seen any episodes?
Yeah. I've heard of it. I know of it. I think I've seen like maybe a commercial, but I mean, I get the concept. It's aliens on like an opposing planet or whatever.
Well, it's a bunch of aliens that are on Earth, basically. And it's Justin Roiland and Mike McMahon, who did Star Trek Lower Decks, which Star Trek Lower Decks, Jim, is the best show that you're not watching. Star Trek Lower Decks, you would love Star Trek Lower Decks, I think. But it sort of shows you Justin Roiland being sans Dan Harmon, and it's my understanding the show is extremely episodic. Like there is the only thing that is a carry through, and this might appeal to Jim. Again, I haven't seen the show, so I'm not going to sort of tout it or not. Apparently the aliens like to periodically grab people they don't like, miniaturize them, and put them in an ant farm that's in their living room. And every so often you will go to the ant farm and there are these vast political upheavals happening in this ant farm. And that's the only thing in the show that's has a continuity to it. And everything else is just extremely episodic. And it sort of, it does make you see how Roiland and Dan Harmon on Rick and Morty are, by all accounts, they get along. They don't dislike each other, but they do, I think, creatively not buttheads. They are creatively a little bit different in that Roiland is very much on the side of, let me just do something goofy this episode and then do something goofy next episode. And Harmon is much more on the side of, no, we need to make this perfect and we need to make this, make sense with all the other stuff. So.
Do you know what that's on?
Hulu. I'll probably watch it too. I mean, I don't know. Roiland, I think has some good instincts and maybe some bad instincts. I don't know. Rick and Morty for me is a show that it does have a lot of highs and I think it has a lot of lows too. I'm very kind of confused by that show to some degree.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure tonight, but I think it's time for me to check out.
All right. I think that we talked about a couple pretty good shows, even if it's not Rick and Morty's not my favorite show, but I think it's a good show. And I think we all like Community a lot. So, I think we'll go ahead and call it. Kale, do you have any, or did you have any final thoughts before you take off?
I don't have anything against people watching Rick and Morty. I think that's perfectly fine. On the other hand, though, Community seemed to be a bit more, for me, entertaining and intriguing because it has solid plots, solid characters that develop, and each one is a little bit different. One of the particular episodes that I didn't mention earlier was the debate episode where the man is good versus man is evil, and that is a really honestly, I'm glad that I saved it to the end because that is a really good episode.
He was horny, therefore he dropped him. Man is evil. Nolan, do you have any final thoughts you want to close out with?
I don't think so, no.
All right, Jim.
I think both shows are worth watching. Like I said before, I think some of the best episodes of Rick and Morty are just fantastic. And Community takes, I think it takes a little bit of work to really enjoy it. But it's got to be one of the best comedies out of that decade.
Sounds good. And I would just say, watch Community all the way through. I think the finale, I wanted to get the name right. Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television is up there for best series finales out there, and it's great. And I just want to thank everybody for watching, and share below what episodes you like, what episodes you think are great, what kind of sticks out to you. And like I said, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and have a good drink, and have a good day.
Thanks, Ian.
Bye, everybody.